All right. Hello and welcome to the coaching conversation. This is your host, Salah El. I am really excited to have with me today Pete Davis. Pete is an author and someone who I really respect. The way I came across Pete's work was by watching his TED Talk, or actually not TED Talk, was a commencement speech at Harvard, I think several years ago, and I still go back and listen and watch that video over and over. I think the topic was committed, which is also the name of his book. So I am really excited to have him with me today. Pete, welcome.
So glad to be here. Thank you.
So I've been reading this book recently. Actually, I had your book for some time, and might have been in the last several months that I went back and started to read it. And as I mentioned in some of our communication, that I usually, when I work with the individuals and they're constantly trying to find ways to do something, I refer them to your commencement speech.
That's
Uh,
very kind of you.
so, um, so first, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we can dive in.
I am a writer and civic advocate. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. Really care about the topics of democracy and solidarity in America. How do we all co-create our shared world and how do we build relationships with each other? And I believe those are kind of the key challenges of our time. How do we deepen American democracy, deepen American solidarity, and in our country at least. And I do a lot of writing around that and a couple of projects around that too. And
Uh,
also kind of in my spare time running around chasing two toddlers. So
Yeah, no, that's great. We're actually neighbors. I'm in the Baltimore area as well, so
yeah.
I didn't realize that you're in the same area. I want to start by the commencement speech. I know this was one of the speeches. I'm a fan of commencement speeches in general, or I like to geek out on some of the inspirational speeches that I see every year when they bring high caliber speakers to inspire the graduates. And in 2018, that was the commencement speech that you gave, and it was about this theme of commitment. What made you choose that topic for this particular event?
It's a very funny genre of writing, a commencement speech, because it's like 5 minutes. What is the one thing you want to say to people your age or something?
Hmm.
And I wasn't like I was the speaker from the students. So was talking to people my age, not talking at the end of my career, reflecting on it for younger people. So, it's also even harder because it's like, what do I know, any more than anyone else? And, the thing I was really drawn to was that there were two contradictory messages that people my age were getting. And I just wanted to explore that tension between those two contradictory messages. So, one message we were getting, and I was getting it from everyone everywhere. So many of my friends and so many people my age were talked to, we were getting this message, which was keep your options open. It was almost like this creed we kept hearing, KYOO, keep your options open. We were told, don't get too attached to anything because, you never know when things will change.
Hmm.
Don't choose the job that will help you get other jobs. Don't speak out too much about what you believe because that might, lose options. When people were assessing options, they were always choosing the option that kept their options open. And so that was one message. The other message, that was like the explicit message that we were getting. People were telling us that and we were telling ourselves that.
Mm.
The other message that we were getting was an implicit message of who we were observing that
Mm.
we actually honored and were inspired by. So when you looked at the actual people that were inspiring us, the people who had made a big impact on the world, the people who were really joyful, the people who were older or in history, or even people our own age that we were looking to and admiring, they were people that did not keep their options open at all.
Yeah.
So this is a real weird tension. We're being
Yeah.
told this one message, but the people that were the people we most admired were not keeping their options open. In fact, they were people who were foregoing options for the sake of loving something for a
Hmm.
long time. They were making commitments to particular things. And this is what I mean by particular things. I'm really big on that phrase in this.
Mm.
It's not that they were making commitments to abstract things. Like they weren't like, I'm going to fight for justice or fairness. All of that is very important. Or I'm going to keep my life interesting. All of us were all committed to abstract things. That's why we wanted to keep our options open for the sake of all those abstract things. These people were committed to particular things. They were committed to a craft or a community or a specific cause or a specific place or a specific person. And they were closing doors for the sake of that. And over the long haul, they became what I call long haul heroes, people who worked
Mm.
at things day in, day out, year in, year out. And then 15 years later, saw the fruits of what they were doing. And so I wanted to explore that tension of why do we act in infinite browsing mode,
Mm. Yeah.
but respect the long haul heroes. And that became the speech. And then I got invited, the speech went viral. And then I got invited to expand on the thought into this book dedicated. And it was kind of exploring that tension. Um, why are we attracted to infinite browsing mode, but really deep down want to be long haul heroes?
Yeah. Yeah, I love the metaphor of the infinite browsing mode, as you put it in the speech and in the book as well. I think it resonate with a lot of people. The way that you started the speech is very captivating about like this idea of they want to watch something or they want to look at a movie or a show or something, and then they have so many choices that they get overwhelmed, and at the end they don't really commit or dedicate time to any particular thing, like you said.
Yes.
So how did you come up with this metaphor? It's very relevant to the topic of being dedicated to
Yeah,
something.
it's another great case for, it's the type of writing or speaking that you need, which is if you have this abstract concept like browsing and committing and whatever, you need some image to hook people. And I had not been able to take these ideas that were floating around in my head and come up with this image until it hit me. And it hit me because I am a victim of infinite browsing mode myself. I love watching movies at night, and I find myself all the time at night clicking on the menu screen, scrolling through different titles, reading a few
Mm,
reviews, looking at this poster, even jumping into a movie for a bit, for a minute, and
mm,
be like, "Do I really want to watch this?"
yeah.
And then it hit me. That's exactly what we're doing as a generation. We're stuck in infinite browsing mode,
Mm,
and we need to pick a movie and watch it all the way through.
yeah.
And in the literal metaphor, you get the exact same result as in the real thing, which is
Mm,
even a bad movie, if you commit to it for 8 minutes, it hooks you in. The
yeah.
aspects of commitment start grabbing you, and you get past the assessment mind
Mm,
that's flattening everything and assessing it by characteristics,
mm,
and to the engagement and relational mind that is, letting the sense of purpose come through, that's letting the relational community come through, that's giving
mm,
you a sense of depth. You find yourself 8 minutes in, you care about the main character, you're excited by the setting, you're interested in how it talks, you're wondering about the cause of the main character. And
yeah.
by that moment, even if it's maybe not a bad movie, maybe you want to shut off a bad movie, even if it's a mid movie, to use the Gen Z word,
Mm,
it hooks you in because of your commitment, not because of the
mm,
qualities of the movie. This isn't to say qualities don't matter. This isn't to say we should go to arranged marriages or something like that.
mm,
But I'm just saying qualities matter less than we
mm,
think they do. And that I would venture to say, it's not an exact science. I would venture to say at least half of the joy and impact that you have is not the initial quality of the choice of the option, but
mm.
rather the commitment that you mix in with the initial quality.
That's a great distinction. Like it's committing or dedicating your time and your energy to something can lead to deeper outcomes or deeper learning. My father used to say, love what you do so that you can do what you love. Probably like a popular phrase as well. A lot of times, people or many our generation and maybe so in the younger generation or newer generation, it feels like because they have so many options nowadays, it's hard to just focus on one thing. And especially now with all the social media and scrolling, and it's very easy to just not have the patience or the commitment or the dedication to pay attention to something that they can sit through for some time. It's because everything is just like very short, and there's a lot of it. So consumption has become quick and easy, and trying to
And yeah,
commit a lot of time or dedicate a lot of time for one thing is very hard.
this works at almost this concept is present at almost every scale.
Hmm.
So you can talk about it in the grandest of things like a marriage or a cause that lasts 50 years or a relationship with a place and getting to be part of a community over 10 years. You can talk about how when you're browsing, you'll never uncover the gifts of this thing as when you're committing.
Yeah.
But it also works at the micro scale. This is what's
Hmm.
kind of amazing about it. If you're only going to watch something for 10 seconds, it better be the most quickly fascinating thing ever, which is why on TikTok, like a person getting slapped in the face or slipping and falling or some weird animal appearing out of nowhere is going to hit in 10 seconds.
Hmm.
But that level of joy is a low plateau relative to the level of joy you will have in a same 10-second video
Yeah.
if the 10-second video is embedded in a context of a commitment. So when, when I listen to the final song, the Beatles' shortest song is called Her Majesty. It's their last song they ever released.
Mm.
I think it's like 40 seconds long or something. That 40 seconds means so much more to me because I am in a relationship with the Beatles. I know
Mm.
like the context of that song. I know how it's related to British culture. I know what it meant that it was on Abbey Road and it ends the Abbey Road suite.
Mm.
And so I listened to those 40 seconds. That 40 seconds would never make it on TikTok if I was commitmentless. And I was just, it's just a little ditty, but it means everything to me because I know a lot about the Beatles and I'm in a relationship with the Beatles. And that's just stuff I know about them. That's not even how it's related to my life and how I listened to it in the car when I was 7 or something like that. All the aspects of entering into a relationship with something outside of yourself. Those 40 seconds on the micro level become so much filled with meaning, feeling, purpose, impact.
Mm.
Um, but that only comes because of all the things that are around it, which
Mm.
is the culture of the committed relationship.
Yeah.
And so that's the fun. That's what I want to share with people
Yeah.
about if you just the apps and the technology are trying to hold your attention in the contextlessness,
Mm.
and it might give you a sugar rush, just
Yeah.
like eating, pixie sticks do or some sugary candy or whatever. But the that's not something you're going to remember 50 years from now. And I'm going to remember
Mm.
Her Majesty by the Beatles when I'm in the retirement home.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to remember the coolest jump skateboarding jump on the TikTok video.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I mean that's a great point because it you're talking about context and also this idea of memories, that having a relationship or a dedication to something, um even if it was like a short clip or something that will have some context to give you um memories, or have to trigger some memories that you've had, like you said, with the 7-year-old car ride, and listening to it, and then that 40 seconds means something. The thing is, that you're pointing to is that now it's the scrolling and the clips are just meaningless. It's like, after, even like the metaphor, is like you scroll, and you get these short videos in your feed, whether it's on any platform, and then after a while you can't even find the video anymore. It's forgotten. So similar to, if something doesn't have context or doesn't have meaning, or you don't have any dedication or attachment to it, after you watch it, it's gone and it's forgotten.
Totally.
Yeah.
That is the thing. It feels like it's at the time when you're scrolling, it feels like the most exciting thing in the world. If you showed this to someone 100 years ago, let alone 1,000 years ago,
Hmm.
they'd be like, "You're a wizard. This is amazing. Wow, that's the coolest minute of my life."
Yeah.
But it's weird. It's something strange is going on because it all disappears and it all wisps away. Whereas, and I mentioned this in the speech, that typical Tuesday night, that
Mm,
ordinary moments where you have dinner with a friend and you open up for the first time,
mm,
or you know, really feel like you've gotten mastery over a craft.
mm,
Or you see, like look at when your sports team finally wins.
mm,
When your sports team finally wins, let's say like they catch the final out, the literal physical thing that happens at the end isn't in the top 10,000 most interesting things. Like, oh, someone caught a fly ball or whatever. But it's the thing you will remember 50 years later
yeah.
because of the culture around it that you are acculturated to, that you are in a relationship with.
Yeah.
And from all the memories that you have accrued up, from all the meaning making that you did, from all the knowledge and depth you have of the thing, from the community you've built with others who are in it with you together,
Mm,
from the sense of purpose it's built up in you. That is what makes it feel
mm.
amazing. And I just don't want I'm talking to myself too. I'm just as much of
Yeah.
an infinite browser as everyone else. I don't want me or anyone else my age or anyone on this world to miss out
Yeah.
on this stuff.
Yeah.
We might have a 5 out of 10 life
Mm,
if we browse infinitely, choosing the most optimal options. But
mm.
we're never going to have the 9 out of 10 life we could have. I always say 9 out of 10 instead of 10 out of 10 because you
Yeah.
can't promise perfection. But
Yeah.
we can have a 9 out of 10 life, which is being kind of surrounded by the purpose and depth and community that comes from making
Mm.
commitments to particular things.
And it's interesting because when I talk to leaders or teams or individuals, and there's this sort of coaching tool. You ask them like, how's your life going, maybe on a scale of 0 to 10, and then they say, okay, maybe in this area of my life, let's say learning or education or work, it's 5 out of 10. As you know.
Yeah.
And but okay, and then you ask like, okay, where would you want to, where would you want it to be, or how you want it to be? And they say like 7 out of 10, or 8 out of 10, or 9 out of 10. And when you dig deeper, you find like, okay, it's really what's causing this 5 out of 10, or the quality is this sort of frenzy of like, going from one thing to the next and not really getting in the state of flow, as sometimes it's referred to, the state of flow, where they're just committed and dedicated to something that they basically lose track of time, and just they're sort of isolated from the world because they're focused on this one thing that they're trying to accomplish. Um, so yeah, I 100% like the 5 out of 10. Browsing, with browsing, 5 out of 10. It's always, and kind of like at work, in a work setting also. It's like people are
Yeah.
jumping from one meeting to the next, from one thing to the next, and there's no sort of
And
context.
amen. Amen. And I can't emphasize enough that I just want people to do an experiment. Like, let's use my original metaphor, like browsing movies.
Mm,
Pick a totally random movie and watch it with your friends.
mm,
Um, it doesn't even matter.
yeah.
um, because like, I think it's important to test it on a thing that you didn't use your optimizing brain on.
Mm,
Like let's do a quicker one. Go to a random restaurant, like truly pick randomly. Go with your friends or your family. Um, and just go and just be there present for an hour.
mm,
And all the stuff I talk about that happens when you just make a commitment to a particular thing. And this is in a very micro scale. And you can scale this up to your whole
mm,
life. um, Suddenly what I say in the book and try to hint at it in the speech of what happens is when you commit to something is you slowly develop three things. You develop a sense of purpose, you develop a sense of um, uh, community, and you develop a sense of depth. You go to this
Mhm.
new restaurant, you didn't choose it. Slowly, you learn more about a part of your city. You learn more about a type of food you might have never known before. So that's depth. You know now what's going on here when someone asks, "What's the deal with that restaurant?" You taste something new on the menu and then you learn something new. That's depth. You have a shared memory with someone else who's doing it with you. You have done
Mm.
this commitment together. The kind of fancy word for this is you've convocated together. You've done this thing. You have a shared calling in this 1 hour where you're doing this
Mm.
thing together. So you build up a bunch of memories, and your relationship deepens because relationships deepen when you reveal something about yourself to each other. And the only way you reveal something about yourself to each other is through experience together in the world, where you show some part of yourself by what you order or how you like it or the level of spice you can handle, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, and then this comes with purpose. This is a range of goofy purposes to really serious purposes like causes and relationships, but it could even be a
Mm.
goofy purpose like we're going to go find a new interesting thing to get fed during this hour.
Mm.
And you wake up an hour later on a thing you never optimized for because you chose it randomly, but because you made that commitment, you have a little bit closer of a relationship. You have a little bit more depth of an area of your life,
Mm.
and you have a deeper sense of, purpose, and, even in this goofy purpose. And you wake up an hour later and your life is deeper. The culture around you is richer. All these beautiful things happen. There's more joy eventually. And I just, it's not always the case. Some things are really bad, some things don't work out, some things don't take. But more often than not, I'm trying to say with this message, we just totally undervalue this aspect of how impact happens and joy happens,
Mm.
for the sake of this kind of choosing mind uber alles that
Yeah.
eventually never chooses because it leads to analysis paralysis.
I hear you. Like you're very passionate about this, idea of being dedicated and committed. I wonder if something inspired us. I know, with the commencement speech, with the conveying this message to people is something that is really admirable. Like, and it's a good cause because we've lost, the sense of enjoying something for some time rather than just kind of like this idea of like infinite browsing or doom scrolling and just going through the things and without really focusing on any one particular thing. But I'm wondering if something that sort of flipped this switch, if you will, for you to say,
Yeah.
okay, I think this is something that the world needs.
The way I came into this was actually a strange way. It wasn't through like self-help reflection in the abstract. It came through a really concrete, a slightly more concrete challenge,
Mm.
which is I really care about the civic future of our country and,
Mm.
and the world generally, but I'm here. So I care about what's going on here. And what our civic situation in America is really rough, and it's been rough for a while. It's not just in the last few years. It's been in trouble for a few decades. A lot of people don't have a lot of hope about the future.
Mm.
We have a weak, sick democracy that where people don't feel like they're co-creating our shared world. We have a weak, sick social fabric where people don't feel like we're connected to each other. Divides are all over the place.
Mm.
A sense of isolation and a loneliness crisis are growing. People's trust in institutions and each other are at low points. And that all adds up to people don't feel very hopeful.
Mm.
And I have been searching for 2 decades for what is the source of this problem, but not just to talk about a problem, but
Mm.
through finding the source of the problem, we can find the source of the solution. And I used to care on the much more bigger system level. Like, do we need to fight gerrymandering, or do we need to change ranked choice voting, or what constitutional amendment would help us, or what specific candidate or specific app would help? But all of
Now
I've
AI is going to help
oh yeah,
us.
whatever. Is AI going to help us? Spoiler alert, no. And what I kind of have made a turn to, and the speech was part of it, and the book was part of it, was we need to go much more foundational.
Mm,
We need to look at, like, at the very basic 101 level, what are the virtues and practices
mm,
on an individual citizen level, on the local community level, what are missing that
mm,
are needed to have a deeper democracy, to have a stronger community in this country.
mm,
And so, I made a movie with my sister called Join or Die. It's a film about why you should join a club and why the fate of America depends on it. It's on Netflix through April, and you can book a community screening at joinorddiefilm.com. It is a film that is one of those, like, basic foundational building blocks. If we don't join things,
mm,
we will never have a democracy. But even before joining, at the even more atomic level, at the even more abstract, what is the virtue and practice that even allows someone to join in anything?
mm,
What is the virtue and practice that even allows someone to enter into a relationship with something outside of themselves, which is the foundational fabric of what politics is, a relationship with something, with the others. It's not politics if there aren't the others.
yeah.
If you're not caring about the system out there or the other people. Um, what is the psychological thing at the base of this
Mm,
that's stopping us from doing that? And I felt like commitment was at the foundation. That was the Archimedean lever. Because if we are stuck in infinite browsing mode and we never make a commitment to another person or a community or a cause or a place, we're never going to have that basic layer that turns us from being all private, isolated selves, disempowered and disconnected, to the flourishing, empowered, and connected living culture of democracy that we want in this country. And so that's why I cared about that. And I came at it from two angles. I came at it from the one angle of what's that, like, psychological state of not committing, and then
mm,
I came at it from the very concrete angle of looking at the people that were master citizens, the people that made big impacts on the world. And I mean big in both the big scale of, like, people who changed this whole country, to big in the sense of people who rocked the world of their neighborhood,
yeah.
or, of a sector, or of a profession, or of a craft, and really transformed a corner of this country.
Mm.
All of them had in common that they made that jump from infinite browsing mode to dedication.
First of all, congratulations on getting this movie on Netflix. That's huge. I'm looking forward to check it out. And you mentioned a lot in your book. I see you mention examples like Martin Luther King and how sort of and others who stuck to one particular thing, and that's how they became who they are. Again, like you said, if we go back to that idea of dedicated or commitment, and everyone is on the sort of they're losing the attention, they're infinitely browsing things and not really dedicating to anything, then who is there to actually, you know, change the way things are? Even, I mean, at society level is definitely a big thing, but even at the individual level, like you said, and then also in the team level, the organization level, everyone seems to be sort of like frantically trying to do something that doesn't have any context, or the meaning is missing.
Yeah, I'm really into this idea from the great urbanist Jane Jacobs, where she said, there you we spend a lot of time looking at negatives,
Mm,
and we say, how do we solve the problem of this negative? But
mm,
you could flip it on its head and say a negative is always a lack of a positive, often.
mm,
And her example she gave was, like, economic wealth. I think she wrote about this in her book Wealth of Cities. Don't quote me on that, though. I'm pretty sure that's the book it's in, where she talks about, like, we talk about fighting poverty, but really what poverty is a lack of the creation and distribution of wealth. And I think about that with community. We talk about fighting loneliness, but loneliness is the opposite of is the lack of community, the creation and spreading of community. You can talk about the problems of democracy, like everyone's angry and polarized, but you can flip that on its head and say that's the those problems are actually the lack of this positive thing that's being done. And I think that's a big thing I'm trying to get at with this commitment and aspect, which is we're running around trying to solve all these problems, but we should flip them on their head and say, well, what is the thing that is lacking that
Mm,
is causing those problems? And usually what it is it's a lack of some functioning culture, of, like some institution is corrupt and lagging because it doesn't have a thriving living culture.
mm,
Some place has kind of lost the energy out of it because it doesn't have a thriving living culture. Some people are lonely, some system like democracy, or some firm like, some corporation or some workplace or whatever. And when you flip it on its head, usually the beginning, what I see the solution as is not an engineer going in and identifying all the specific gears that are wrong and fixing all the wires and then
mhm,
saying, I've identified the problem and I've identified the solution and I've done the engineering problem in some precise way. What I see it as is actually the best metaphor is the ecological metaphor, which is
mhm,
there's all these deserts
mm,
and we need to reforest those deserts,
yeah.
with specific types of cultures and communities and dense networks of relationships.
Mm,
And the central seed of a thriving culture, community, network of relationships, sense of purpose, whatever thing you're embedded in, context, all these words we've been using throughout this conversation, the central seed is a commitment.
mm,
It is one person committing to do something, and then eventually it's that's a vocation, their calling, and then a convocation. The Wendell Berry, the great Kentucky philosopher's word, convocation, a calling together of people coming together and forming a commitment with each other.
mm,
That is the seed, and that's why I wanted to start from the beginning.
yeah.
Need a lot of plant a lot of seeds, and we got to start from the beginning on that.
Yeah. Yeah, this reminds me of the work of I think Martin Seligman. You might have heard of him. He's considered the father of positive psychology, and he said something about like just getting rid of using the metaphor of also like gardening is like just getting rid of the weeds doesn't necessarily make things flourish. The plant, you have to plant the seed, right? After
Yes,
you
totally.
get rid of the weeds. So it's sort of like this idea, as you said, the negative is an absence of positive. I really love that. And how do we plant that seed, whether it's an individual level? I know the first step is obviously like you're doing awareness and getting people to see that their attention and their commitment or their infinite browsing is going to give them a 5 out of 10 quality of life.
Yeah.
And if they want a 9 out of 10, then there's sort of, there's a way to do that by planting that seed of dedication. But let's say this is a conversation, about planting that seed.
Yeah.
Where do you start? Like, what do
Yeah.
you do?
I'm a believer that the planting of all these seeds are a leap of faith, to use Kierkegaard's phrase, a leap of faith. And so there's nothing, it is something in your soul that eventually decides to make the jump. And it is so unknowable. There is no rational decision in our life. We don't know the meaning of all this stuff. We don't know why we're here on earth and why it ends and all this stuff. And death haunts the infinite browsing. Like I really think death is in the room when we're
Mm,
infinite browsing because we're thinking, gosh, I have one life to live. And this is one of those nights on my, certain amount of 10,000 or so nights I have, and we're scared of that.
mm,
And you have to make the leap. So, but that's a cop out if I am just saying, oh, you just got to make the leap. So let me do a little bit of help to set you up for the leap.
mm,
And the one help I will give you to set you up with a leap, in addition to arguing for all the reasons it's good to leap, is I'll talk about three fears and let's surface three fears that might be getting in the way.
mm,
One is a fear of regret. Another is, and so let's talk about the fear. Let's take one fear at a time. One is a fear of regret. I fear that if I choose one movie or one thing in my life, one partner, one place, whatever, I will wake up 20 years later and regret that I chose this and imagine choosing something else. The way to think about the fear of regret that might help, again, it's going to be a leap of faith to overcome that fear. It's going to take courage and bravery, not some rational equation. But
Mm,
one thing I can help you with is that um, when you wake up 20 years from now, it is not the you now that is
mm,
waking up 20 years from now. It is the you who made that commitment.
mm,
If you infinitely browse after making the choice, it will be the you 20 years from now, regretting and still stuck in infinite browsing mode. But if you're able to turn off your choosing mind a bit after making that choice, the commitment will take on a life of its own and change the subject you
mm,
that is assessing your life and having the choice to have regrets later. And that you will have a cultivated relationship with the thing you chose. By moving to Texas, you will slowly become a Texan. By getting married to someone, you will slowly become their partner. By being in the cause for someone, it will open up things about itself that you never knew before you chose. You will learn more things about it. It will open up things inside of you that you never knew about yourself. It will bring out parts of you. You will be inseparable from, you will be separable, but you will be like part of that. You'll be meshed together a bit in the choice
mhm,
that you made. And so the you that's making the choice 20 years from now, um, is not you in the browsing room. It's a
mm.
different you. And so that's one thing. And that's what you get when you interview people 20 years from now. They are something different.
Yes.
The second thing is we have a fear of association, um, which is we fear that by attaching to something, it's going to come with baggage. It's going to come with the literal baggage of like all the annoying things that come with making a commitment to a person or a place or a thing. You know,
Mm,
all the aspects of a partner or friendship where that you don't like. All the reputational aspects of, oh my gosh, they moved there, or they're working on that cause, or they're part of that community, all
mm,
that stuff. Um, but the thing is, what's wonderful about this is actually the biggest reputational risk and the biggest annoyance is actually not making a relationship with anything. We don't have a perfect self that we're trying to fit a Tetris piece in,
mm,
and you're having all this anxiety about is this Tetris piece the true me? You build yourself through your relationships. There are parts of yourself you discover only by making that commitment. So it's not, is this the true self that I'm associating with?
mm,
You form your true self out there in experience in the world in the real relationships. So,
mm,
um, and and then finally, we have a fear of missing out, which is we're scared that if I make a commitment to something, I won't be always available to do all this other things that I might miss out on. It's a little different than regret. It's not, I wish I went to this party instead of that party. It's, um, in going to anything, I won't be freely available all the time. And my big thing I want to say to you is think of all the things you will miss out on by not making a commitment.
mm.
You should start thinking about having FOMO for not
Yeah.
finishing the marathon, for not having the relationship bear fruit 5 years later, for not having the joy of really knowing a place and walking into a place and being a regular. We think of all the things I will miss out on now by choosing something, but we don't think enough about the things we'll miss out on by not choosing something.
Mm,
And then finally, by overcoming all of these three fears, you get a gift at the end. When you overcome your fear of regret, you have the gift of purpose, which is
mm.
that by choosing in something, it gives your life meaning.
Yeah.
That's why you don't regret it. It is the thing that made meaning. You
Yes.
enter into a constellation of meaning by being part of something.
Mm,
By giving up the fear of association, you have community. All those people that you went through the desert of awkwardness to get to know, you end with the fruit of they're your community.
mm.
Timothy Kreider says, if you want the fruits of being loved, you better go through the mortifying ordeal of being known. You get known, which is a
Yeah.
mortifying ordeal, but then you got the fruits of being loved. And finally, if you give up your fear of missing out on shallow things, you
Mm,
get the joy of not missing out on deep things. You get depth by trading the frivolity of I want to be available for anything. Like when you say FOMO or YOLO, you usually mean like I'm not going to skydive, I'm not going to go to that great
right.
party or whatever. But those joys, those pleasures are nothing on the joys of depth, of me listening to Her Majesty, the final thing of the
Yeah.
Beatles, and knowing the context so well that it means 100 times more than someone listening to it for the first time and not knowing the context.
Yeah.
Um, and so, you know, if you want purpose, friends, and depth at the end, make the jump. None of my arguments are going to make you make the jump. You got to get quiet and get the voices out of your head, calm the, take the fears to tea and think about if this is something you want. And then I encourage you to make the jump. And then,
Yeah.
a lot of people have asked me, how do you stick to commitments? My whole argument is not against quitting. It's not against bare knuckling through things. It's about planting the seed. And the metaphor holds. Once you
Mm,
plant a seed, it has a momentum of its own. Its
mm,
roots take hold. And my whole argument is not actually a case against quitting, it's a case against infinitely browsing.
mm.
And so I think once you make the jump, you're going to be pleasantly surprised by what happens. It's going to be a real adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the three fears because I was actually had them on my notes to ask you, but this was very insightful as you're describing all these the three different fears because I think the world, or at least a lot of individuals, society in general, or work, they're moving in a sort of another direction with all the distractions, a lot of distractions. So these fears, or at least becoming aware of these fears, the fear of regret and the fear of association and fear of missing out, can help the person decide, do I really fear more of these things, or do I fear not doing or committing to something and dedicating to something? It seems like we have an epidemic of lack of depth, right? There's a lot of, superficial or surface level things. Critical thinking and trying to go into deeper into things has been something that is in short supply. I really appreciate that you're highlighted those three fears and how we can become aware of these fears. And I sense something even underneath all of these things that you mentioned, or of dedication and fear, is to be able to create a community. Because again, like a community of what you call, I'm going to use the terminology that you use in your book, where a community of committers versus browsers, right? So committers, people who are committing to things together, they can change things in the long term, rather than just the browsers or people who just continue to do infinite browsing and not really focus on any particular thing.
Totally. In a way, there is no community without commitment. Community is a commitment,
Mm,
because, what I'm trying to get at is what the commitment is it's a relationship to something outside of yourself. So the browsers are actually not in community.
mm,
And so anyone who has made decided to join this counterculture of commitment, they are not only transforming their own life, they're getting this essential skill or attitude or virtue or practice, whatever you want to call it, that is key to what leads to the joy of community.
mm.
That's what it is. It's not a community if you're infinite browsing each other. It's I'm going to add a little bit of stickiness to our life. It's not a rigid rule. It's not forever. It's not an invitation to be abused by someone who's not treating you well. It's just a little bit more of stickiness, a little bit more rootedness to each other, and allowing that momentum that comes when you enter into a relationship with something outside of yourself.
Yeah.
The most significant of which is other people.
Yeah, it is. It is something that a lot of us are, like you said, keeping our options open, and commitment can be hard if everyone is trying to just not pick one thing, but like you said at the end of your speech, just pick the damn movie and watch it to the end. And So I know we're at the end of 2025 and we're approaching the next year, 2026, and I wonder what is your message or what is something that you want to say as people start to, get into that new year and another passing of one part of time to another part of time. What would you say?
Yeah, I always love, I don't have the best line on this. I'll defer to one of the great titans of commitment and dedication, Wendell Berry, the great Kentucky farmer philosopher. He has a very short poem that I think captures exactly what this is and exactly the spirit of the new year. And here's the poem. In the dark of the moon, in flying snow, in the dead of winter, war spreading, families dying, the world in danger. I walk the rocky hillside sowing clover. And I think that says
Yeah.
everything that we need to hear, which is things are very dark. Literally outside, a lot of the holidays around this time are themed around it's very dark outside and cold, and we need some hope.
Yeah.
And what do you do in a time like that?
Mm,
And what he says is walk that rocky hillside sowing clover. And, I think the single planting of one seed is not a small thing. It's everything.
mm,
Um, you know,
yeah.
so, my favorite professor, this guy, Roberto Unger, Brazilian philosopher, he used to end his classes with this amazing line. He said, he had this grand way he used to talk. Aristotle once said, a single sparrow does not make spring. He was mistaken. And I like love that.
Wow.
It's like
Yeah.
someone needs to start.
Yes.
This is not going to happen automatically. Whatever you want to have happen does not have to happen automatically. Something needs to happen out of nowhere. And what might happen out of nowhere is something that might be stirring in your heart. Can I give one
Mm.
more example?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mentioned in the book Frederick Douglass, the
Mhm.
abolitionists I talk about a lot in the book. It's, you know, 30 years before abolition happened in the United States, the end of slavery.
Mm.
If you ask someone, is abolition going to happen in 30 years? They would have said, heck no, there is no chance. On the prediction markets, it would have been selling for 2 cents or something, that
Mm.
abolition was going to happen in the next 50 years. Um, and a bunch of people committed to fighting for it. I'd recommend the like PBS documentary, The Abolitionists. And they worked for decades on it and they won. They did it. They had a giant revolution in this country. And Frederick Douglass, on the day of the Emancipation Proclamation, they got word of the Emancipation Proclamation. He talks about like a meteor like shooting through the sky.
Mm.
And like he reflects on this meteor shooting through the sky. And in many ways, and that's like what he was thinking about with the abolitionist movement. And I think that's like, I'm giving you plants, I'm giving you birds, I'll give you a
Yeah.
meteor. We're going to go up to the top. We'll end with the meteor.
Yeah,
That's
no.
what hope is.
Yes.
Hope is something out of nothing, and that something out of nothing comes from inside you.
Yes.
And that commitment's a meteor shooting through the sky. It's the single sparrow that makes the ring. It's the planting of the seed that is sowing clover on the rocky hillside. I
Yeah.
can give you more images, but cut me off.
I know. I
Um,
know you have hard stops, so I don't want to
yeah, but
keep, but
that's so. If you're listening out there, this is the year.
yeah, this is the year. Whoever is listening to this is holding and have a fear of commitment or dedication to something. This is it. I want everyone to check out your commencement speech in 2018 and your book dedicated, and also your Netflix show that's out. I really appreciate your time and just taking the time to share your insights and wisdom here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for hosting this. You have a
Yeah.
wonderful thing you're building with this podcast too. And thanks to all your listeners for listening to me yap about this topic I care so much about. And I hope you all have a wonderful new year.
Thanks, Pete. Appreciate it.
Thanks.